When I was young, I used to sit on the armrest of my mom's chair and watch her play World of Warcraft with my dad. I would stare in awe as I watched her do quests and raids throughout this digital world in so many different areas, with other real people. So many cool things, from mounts to vastly different enemies, all packaged into this 3D expanse that seemed to have no end. Every day it was different, and when I wasn't watching her play, I was reenacting the game in the hallway of my house, pretending to cast fireballs at imaginary creatures that stood in my way. It was the fantasy world that I had dreamed of and yearned to be a part of, with badass characters and cool monsters. I remember asking her one day when I could play, and I vividly remember her telling me, "You can play when you're 13. I thought that was absurd. At the time, that felt like so many years from then, and I just wanted to hop in and play, but she and my dad told me that they didn't know if I could understand everything going on. The intricacies and the stats, the quests, and playing with other people. Understandably so, as I was pretty young, but nonetheless, I was bummed out and just wanted to play a game that seemed bigger than myself, with cool things and crazy ideas. I didn't know where else to find them. My mom credits herself for giving my dad the idea to help me out with that. We had a first-generation Xbox with various games. I hadn't really touched the console much. I was busy being a kid, but I do remember playing Fable alongside Fusion Frenzy and The Simpsons Hit and Run. Christmas one year, my dad had gifted me the Xbox with Halo 2. I'm pretty sure the 360 had already released a while ago because he wouldn't have gifted it to me otherwise, but to say I was excited would be an understatement. I plugged it all in, stuck the disc in, and I distinctly remember hearing the Halo 2 guitar riff that it boots up on. Alongside the bright visuals, it immediately piqued my interest, and then, of course, the main menu. Everything about the screen made my child brain go crazy. A massive alien ship with an odd city paired with the beautiful menu music, all tinted blue, made me want to jump right in. Something about it seemed so intriguing. It might not have been World of Warcraft, but I could easily get behind a sci-fi universe with big alien ships and a badass looking green armored person on the cover. At the time I didn't know it, but this would be the start of a long journey. I hadn't heard a lot about Halo up to that point, and I hadn't realized that I was skipping a game. You might be saying, how could you miss a game when it says Halo 2? Well, I was young and maybe not the brightest, but I also had no idea about the massive following this franchise had, but I can tell you that I was hooked from the first cutscene. I recall thinking to myself about how cool the aliens looked and how many of them there were. They all looked so unique. Watching that first cutscene was like a movie. The camera panning and the whole aesthetic of the Covenant was alluring. The music was so amazing, and it completely put the scene together. I was young enough that I didn't really understand what was going on, but I thought it was cool. Listening to these aliens talk and argue, watching the Halo explode, not knowing what it was, not knowing what the great journey was, it all gave me a sense of a universe that was bigger than me. Something that I could dive into, a story that I could immerse myself in, if only to shoot some bad guys. Halo 2 did an amazing job at summarizing the previous game from the Covenant's perspective, that I never even thought that I was missing anything. Cairo Station is the first level of Halo 2, and I still remember every second of this level. Running through the station, shooting at aliens, seeing the other stations explode, It gave a sense of urgency, and heading to the outside of the station was one of those wow moments for me. Looking around at space and seeing all the ships flying by, I knew that I wanted more of this game. This first experience with Halo was eye-opening for me. It was a new adventure, something to look forward to after every school day, and something fun to sink all of the time that I had into. Every so often, my dad would hop on with me and we'd play some co-op, and they're easily some of my favorite memories. On top of that, playing Halo supplied the foundation for my love of the sci-fi genre and gaming in general. I had played games before Halo, but nothing got me engaged like it did. I would be at school and all I could think about was getting home to play more. Of the many things that stuck with me through my childhood, it was the landscapes of Halo 2. I wouldn't remember most of the dialogue, but I could easily remember the feelings I had while looking at the missions Halo 2 brought to the table. Fast forward a year or two, and I had played through Halo 2 so many times over that I could probably recite most of the cutscenes verbatim. This game was my childhood, and I knew that. This remains one of my favorite games of all time, not even due to nostalgia. The dialogue, music, and scenery in it are top tier. Almost every moment is memorable, and most dialogue in this game is quotable, if you have friends that also play Halo. I'm glad that this was my first experience with Halo. The cliffhanger ending only made me want to play it more and more, just because it was so much fun. At the time we didn't have Xbox Live, so I didn't get to experience the multiplayer, but that changed when my dad finally let me play the Xbox 360. Halo 3 had been out for a while at this point, but when my dad told me we were getting it, there were no questions. This was a major point in my love for Halo. I was still young, around 6, but I was old enough that I could kind of understand what was going on now. The plot was starting to make sense, but still all I really wanted to do was shoot some more Covenant baddies, and marvel at the crazy scenery. I played Halo 3's campaign so much more than I did Halo 2's, although I still went back and forth between the two games. For years, they were pretty much all I played, jumping on other things for short times in between. But I had completely forgotten about World of Warcraft, and I had fully immersed myself in the sci-fi world. This game was my bread and butter, and all the while I was creating so many tinier memories that I would look back on fondly. It's funny looking back and see a lot of games like art now, but back then I just wanted to shoot things. I'd see these amazing 3D worlds render before my eyes, beautiful landscapes stretching over the horizon, interesting places all in a virtual world nearly limitless, and stories so deep and rich you forgot about the real world for a bit. Halo for me was what sparked that realization, being dropped into a world that isn't your own, learning about it and soaking up all the details through world build. Video games are one of the most interesting art forms out there, and I think a lot of people tend to forget that. A while into playing Halo 3, I finally started to really appreciate the story going on. I went back to Halo 2 and soaked up all of the details that I hadn't fully picked up on, and continued to Halo 3 and realized that there was this whole universe I had been playing in without really knowing why, apart from, we have to destroy the Scarab to do the thing. I played the games over and over again, and when I had a proper grasp, I went to YouTube to watch some Halo stuff, where I learned about something called lore. This was the rabbit hole. I watched YouTube video after YouTube video about the Halo lore. It was all so cool and so interesting I just couldn't stop myself. And then suddenly I hit a brick wall. What do I do now? Halo 4 wasn't a thing yet, and there weren't any other Halo games I could play. I had sulked about it for a while. I could only play Halo 2 and Halo 3 so many times, and there was no way for me to play Halo Combat Evolved at the time. So I was stuck in a Halo drought. I had no idea Halo 3 ODST existed at the time, but me, with my luck, one day I was scrolling online and saw news about a game coming out called Halo Reach.